Anytime a system is set up that restricts or limits the ability of a group of people, in our case, Black fathers, to be limited or to be restricted in how they parent their children, that really is a civil rights issue.
Outside of the stuff that we know is abuse to children, things that are just not okay. Sexual abuse, physical abuse, directly putting the kids in harm's way. But outside of those things, you got to ask yourself, what real reasons do I have to keep this child away from their father?
But regardless of that, if the father is willing, and we know that most Black fathers want to be in their children's lives, if we know that the Black father is willing to be in a child's life, we shouldn't use court systems to separate us. We shouldn't use our children as tools to fight the father or become a weapon against the father.
Pero no te das cuenta del daño que estás haciendo. Así que detente, para, ya basta. No sigas, no prosiga, porque es importante la vida emocional de tu hijo.
Because the emotional life of your child is important. I love that last one. Well, yes, and the fact that she just said stop. There's no time to accommodate any. I don't want to hear the story. Just stop, right? I don't want to hear the explanation. Just stop. Not good for the emotional development of your child. So Karibuni, Asanteni. Again, the name is Nduku. I am the host on Kumbukeni, where we tell our narrative from our own perspective, countering the false narrative that Western media has propagated against Africans and Africa all over the globe. We get a chance to speak for ourselves, kujichagulia. I'm joined by my brother, Nware Rahsaan Burge, today. He is a professor, a high school teacher, and an award-winning documentary filmmaker. I'm glad I got that right, Nware. So Nware, please introduce yourself to us and just let us know what inspired you to make this film, please.
Yes, my name is Nware Rahsaan Burge. I am from the great Newark, New Jersey. And the inspiration for the film is three reasons. First, listening to women talk about this on social media. Women have often have powerful voices on social media and different platforms, YouTube channels, and those things. And so there's a lot of different narratives in regards to a lot of topics, especially post-COVID, on a myriad of issues. But one issue that I've heard quite often were women speaking about the importance of fathers, and then more specifically, women not allowing fathers to see the children. And so there's, these social media posts and videos and all of these things. And so, and I'll spin it back a little bit before that. Even before seeing this during COVID, 2021, 2022, myself personally, I'm dealing with parental alienation, as well as a lot of other Black men and men in general, but this is more specific to Black men. And then I'll go back even further. So I've worked on a multitude of documentaries at one time, something that you shouldn't do at all, right? This goes against the grain, and all of them shouldn't be working on multiple projects, but I'm not necessarily funded like I fund myself. And so I was working on a piece where I was applying for grants, constantly applying for grants. And then one grant I was really waiting for and was hoping to get so I could get started on this major project, and it didn't come. And so I was a bit disappointed, even though I continued to film. And I started thinking to myself, oh, wow, what is it that I could work on that might not require a lot of funding until I get more funding in regards to this project. And as I'm listening to, and I'm not on social media like that a whole lot, but again, when we casually are scrolling now, you see, topics of interest, political topics, historical topics, things that are funny. But I kept hearing this narrative of women talking about fathers not seeing their kids. And I know I was going through it, and I know a lot of men have gone through it. So as I guess we'll call it a single man, and meeting women, I won't say dating, I'll say meeting and having conversations. Once or twice I had a conversation in regards to a woman being single and or a single mother, I should say, to be more on point, a single mother speaking about, or not speaking about the father, I should say. And so over time, I began to ask, is the father in the child's life? Is he, what does he do? And not really to pry, but just asking general questions. And I began to notice that the answers were kind of vague. And so it wasn't nothing that I would continuously pry on and continue to ask. And I might ask it once, and then that would be it. And so over time, you know, it could be a month, 2 months, 3 months. You might ask again, well, is the father around? Or, you know, and what I began to notice is that it just seemed, the answers seemed to be vague. So then I would ask more direct questions like, is he violent? Is he abusive, alcoholic, you know, dealing drugs, you know, these type of things. And, you know, they would tell me, or the person would tell me no. So then I began to say, well, why isn't, or began to ask, well, why isn't the kid seeing the dad? And then you could kind of hear this type of, again, kind of vague answers. And then eventually, you know, you begin to hear, oh, he's dealing with his own life and he's moved on, and, you know, nothing really concrete. And I've heard this often. And so it got my wheels turning, and I started to think, you know, something, this might be a topic that I might need to discuss or talk about. And as bad as some of the other stories, because I have a story, people know my story, you're like, man, but I've heard even worse stories than mine. It's made me think, like, you know what, I think this needs to be a documentary. And there's a documentary on HBO called The Blacklist that came out back in 2008, I think. And it's generally an up-close interview of which features pretty well-known Black artisans, educators, corporate people, but people that are known in the media spotlight. And so they would speak for about anywhere from 5 to 8 minutes about any general topic, but regarding being Black, right? So it's around the Black experience, but it could be any topic. They could be reflecting on their past, they could be talking about a specific racial issue, they could be talking about Black musicians, or whatever. And so it would be 5 to 8 minutes that would fade out and go to the next person. So for example, it might be a Maya Angelou. She'll speak for 5 to 8 minutes, and then it'll fade out, and then you'll see Chris Rock's name, and then Chris Rock will come on and he'll speak about some type of topic and throw a joke in there, fade out, go maybe to Serena Williams. And that's where it hit me. I said, you know what? I think I want to do something like that, but just interviewing women about the topics, or about the importance of fathers in the lives of family and children, but more so how mothers sometimes or many times keep fathers out of the children's life through court systems or through personal reasons. So I think that's really the foundation of the film itself.
And you almost took my second question, which is okay, because this is having a conversation, right? But why did you specifically interview? Because the documentary is all women speaking about this issue. Why specifically women and not the fathers who could speak from experience?
Well, I think women listen to women, and ironically, one of the interviewees, Teresa the Songbird, a great poet, who went viral with a video titled, or a poem, which she performed on the Stella Awards, called "You So Black," and it went viral. But I think she makes a point that women listen to women better, and with the what I call the versus battle, in hip hop and all this during COVID, everyone was doing what's called versus. Versus battle, I call it the man versus the woman thing. I call it the new versus battle. And so because of the versus battle, I felt like me or men talking about this topic is just going to go, it's just going to hit deaf ears. I felt like it's going to sound like complaining. And so, and in many cases with this topic, when men are talking about, child support or issues that they have with the mother of the children, it's normally like 5 minutes complaining at a bar or you're talking to your boy, you're just complaining
in the barber shop.
Yeah, the barber shop, exactly, right? And complaining a little bit, and then it's a conversation, but it ends there. So I just felt like it's a voice that's unheard, and it wasn't really, because again we have this narrative stereotype of the deadbeat dad, which is a big stereotype been going on for years.
But one that's only specific to our community, not white folk, right?
Yeah. Exactly, right, exactly. So there's reasons for that. And when you have this scenario, when you have a lot of fathers who want to be in the children's lives, and you do have men who don't want to see their children for a myriad of reasons. Now, I don't think that that's right. At the same time, I don't know the story, but we know that it does exist. But what seems to stick is that it's all Black men specifically. And Oprah just went on the record, I think, on her show, and I think she put out articles and interviews regarding this myth, basically. And I think there was a CDC report of how active Black men are in their children's lives.
Yeah.
So it's a tough thing, because I understand in the 60s and the 70s, and I have this joke that's not a joke. And I always say, when you look at some of the data, and I won't go on record quoting specific primary data right now, but when you read, you come across a lot of information. And during 60s and the 70s, it was almost kind of like from, I would say, the 60s to the 80s is when you begin to have a lot more single parent households. And I will often say, well, did many of these fathers from Brooklyn get on the phone with a bunch of fathers from Philadelphia, and they had a meeting with fathers from Detroit, and then fathers in LA, and then down to Dallas and Houston, and then there was this whole big consensus to say, hey, we're gonna walk out on the women, or not be there for the children. When you see this when these statistics begin to change in Black families, and so if you for context of understanding the historical narrative of racism and white supremacy, you understand how these things periodically play out. If you know anything about the 60s and the 70s, you had Vietnam, and you had a lot of men coming back, heroin addicted, et cetera, et cetera. But then those last years in the 60s, we're talking about anywhere from 65 to 69 to 70. You have all of these leaders that are killed, and the Black community for a couple of years goes into a serious depression. So now you have the depression of losing civil rights leaders, from Fred Hampton to Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, can go on and on, right? The dismantling of the liberation groups, So it was clear of this agenda against Black people around the world, and then we can also target directly Black men.
You have my mind going, and this usually happens with conversations just going everywhere with questions and realizations, because as you described that time and our civil rights movement leaders being killed, they were all men, and therefore as a man, that's going to affect you as in terms of fear, right? Fear, that subconscious fear for your life. It's going to affect you more than the woman. Yes, it affected the women, but for you as a man, now you see yourself as a threat. As a what is it? As a, I want to say prey, but I don't want to take us to that point because we have been compared to animals, and I don't want to allow for that. But that's essentially what you're seeing yourself as a target, right? And therefore for the men, and to make matters worse in our community, especially at that time, the men are not allowed to show weakness, which is what they consider showing their emotional struggles and their stress as weakness. So yeah, it's crazy. And when you talk about this, now that I know more about the United States system and how it intentionally is designed to cause chaos, and especially in the Black family, because part of that is the system is not hiring the Black men at that time, right? It's discriminating on them as far as employment.
And that's where I was about to go.
Thank you. Go there then. Let's go there.
Well, then when you get into in the 70s, you get into the gas crisis, lack of jobs. There's a very famous show called Good Times, which was a micro or macrocosm of the Black experience and the struggle, and his whole struggle just to find a job. And I can reflect back on my father's struggles when I thought about how much he struggled to find work in an urban area. It was difficult, especially without a college degree. Now, he eventually went back and finished his college degree later in life, but the 70s were rough. And I can't imagine with the job market, it changed pretty much in the 90s and 2000s. But in the 70s and 80s, man, even if you had a degree, they weren't paying you a fair salary as a Black man with a college degree. Or women, or anyone Black for that matter. So so those times, I remember a close friend of mine, one of my best friends. I remember, and she's a single mom, and I remember she said she was, going through some things and struggling with some things in regards to life in general. And she said she began to reflect on Black men's struggle to that Africanness as a leader. To want to lead your household, but not being able to have the resources. And then she said it dawned on her, and you rarely hear this in conversations, specifically coming from that. And she said she knew what it felt like to be a man that doesn't have those resources that know they should be providing and want to provide. And struggle with that and trying to find work and stuff like that. And she said it hit her. She said it hit her hard. So, that's the narrative. We talk about the 70s and the 80s, the struggle for work. You had the gas crisis. I don't want to talk about the Iran. Well, I guess the Iran.
Yes, you can, because that's what results into the gas prices, right? It's all connected.
It's all interconnected. Yeah. So, and that lack of jobs, and then you have, issues around, in Iran, the Shah of Iran. I'm going to be, kind of sporadic at times because these are thoughts that are coming in because I'm 53, I'll be 54 this year. And so reflecting on seeing recalling the 70s. And I'll be remiss if I didn't mention that I was in a political household. My mother always had me watching Like It Is. And, so instead of being at church, 12 o'clock, ABC Channel 7, we had this very Black-centered show called Like It Is, where Amiri Baraka from Newark, New Jersey, people like that would be on it. Dr. John Henry Clark.
Given the ignorance in our community, I think everyone should switch church for that. But go on.
Yeah. Well, that's another conversation,
yes.
For another time. But yeah, every Sunday, 12 o'clock, Channel 7, ABC, New York. We had a show called Like It Is. I think it started out in, I believe, the mid 60s or late 60s. I'm not sure, into the 70s and 80s. So I grew up on that. And like I said, you had the Dr. Benyakinen's on there speaking, you know what I mean? Like, you know, so if anything ever came on, like, for example, Eyes on the Prize is a well-known documentary about the struggles of African Americans in America. I couldn't go outside. I had to sit down and watch Eyes on the Prize, you know? So this is the type of household that I came up in, and I thank my mother for that, and I thank my father for that. My father's deceased about 2 or 3 years, but you know, I was born into during the Black Arts movement in the 60s and 70s. My middle name is Rahsaan, after Rahsaan Roland Kirk, the famous jazz artist. So me understanding all of these elements from a historical perspective and a certain type of context, I can recall the struggles of the Black men in America. Even though I was a child, I can now remember and reflect on, you know, what it was like for my father, who struggled with the same elements that James Evans of Good Times struggled with. So, you know, that was a lot of Black households in Black urban America throughout. And Esther Rolle, you know, bless her soul, made sure that there was a father present in that sitcom, because I believe when it first started, they didn't want to have a father present. There's been documentaries that talk about that, and so I don't know the specifics, but I believe it started out with when they did the pilot. It wasn't supposed to be a father present either. She demanded it, or it started out with the father present, but they kept trying to remove him in some capacity. So people can go back and check out Good Times documentaries and stuff. So I can't necessarily recall, but this is, you know, I think a mission of America to have these issues around the Black families in America. So which has an effect on everything: procreation, education, economics, you know, political aspects, voting rights. This all, you know, having an unstable family plays a major role in an unstable society.
In an exploitative system, right? We always say, those of us who are building community in the movement, those of us who are now actively participating, we always say it starts with the family. At least a few of the brothers and sisters I've met are talking about, let's start by fixing the family so that we can have a stronger community. And therefore, these exploiters had studied us, and they took the time to study us, to understand us. And they knew by breaking our family, if our family is broken, we don't have time to rise up and fight the system, right? Because you're too busy dealing with the drama. You're too busy as a single mother, single father. And that's if you're lucky as a Black man that you're not in jail. Trying to make ends meet, depressed because you cannot see your children, wondering what's going on with them, so you find your burden so big that you can't even contemplate fighting for civil rights or human rights because you're already drowning in your own pain, right? So I can. You mentioned versus battle. I'll be remiss if we don't get into that, because I don't know about it, and I'm sure a lot of people who heard you mention it don't know about it. What is the versus battle?
So I just call the versus battle this new narrative around, you know, this Black man versus the Black woman discussion that's been going on in the past 5 to 8 years. I mean, it's been a topic for years, but more pronounced.
when you're coming, if you move further to the side, we're losing you. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, so it's just been more pronounced over the past few years, and and the issues around feminism and women's rights and stuff like that. And for me, it's always been an issue for Black family, period. Like as far as pay, like violence against women getting fair pay, things that I would hope is obvious that women should have equal footing when it comes to pay or men's violence against women. Like these things, like I think should be obvious in the minds of the general public globally. When we get into Black family or Black people dynamics, it's really all about how the Black family moves. I think for me personally, was so I think hell bent on that. It created issues and dynamics with my family, being staunch, Pan-Africanist and hard line on a lot of subjects and a lot of topics. And so, be it marriage or be it issues around what a family is, an African family specifically.
Yes.
So, these things have been very hardline on. And when I say hardline, I don't mean, unlivable or unbearable, but I do mean where I, stand hard on things as it applies to people of African descent. And if you have, lack of marriages and lack of families, then you're just going to have a dysfunctional community. And so, it's, of course, play a major role in that. And not just in the subconscious, but in the frontal lobe, or, I think women understand that if there's any issues with their partner, the courts is the best and first option. And I'm not even talking about physical violence.
Yeah.
I'm talking about just using it, as leverage to create chaos within the relationship or within the family. So, it's just something that, it's not going to go away. Court systems are clear on that, on any emotional, dysfunctional things that go on. It's like, hey, we got you, and so it's I think it's an obvious thing. And I think it's been used and abused. There are men who use and abuse it against women. It's just that the numbers have normally been women using it against men.
Usually the higher numbers of men using it against women is in the white community, which is actually interesting. But yes, that's interesting. You're right. In our community, it's mostly women against the men. But even and you know what? I won't even talk about them. This is not about so how do you address the complexities? And I'm glad I did watch the preview to the movie. And just to let you all know, everyone, the movie is out today. Today is Father's Day. And I was sitting thinking, first of all, thank you for sending it to me. That's where I first found out about it on Instagram, right? When you sent it to me. So your marketing is working. It gave you this result at least. So you can check that in your analytics.
Yes.
Through Instagram, I saw it, you sent it to me. And I was thinking, what show am I having this weekend? What show am I? And I said, this is perfect for Father's Day because there are fathers who are going to be spending, including Nware. Not to put your business out there, but this is the truth, right? Our personal lives is why we tell our narratives, and it's why we go through what we're going through and the challenges.
Yes.
That won't be seeing their children. And so I said, you know what? Let's speak for these fathers, in honor of these fathers, and also on Father's Day, when that child is wondering, where's my father? To remind that mother that it's your fault. Your child is not seeing their father. and you're not doing them any good by using your own revenge or vengeful ways to deny them access to their father. It's not benefiting them. You're in fact continuing to cause the dysfunction that is now affecting all of us in society, because that man is going to come out not having learned from their father. And it's very, very important for especially male children and female children to have a father figure in their family, in their life.
Absolutely.
So go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in my, personal situation, I'm definitely going through that. And it's something, again, that is as American as apple pie, and
which is unfortunate.
McDonald's, hot dogs. I don't eat hot dogs or McDonald's, but it's very, American to, child support and, the divorce or the separating, when we talk about this topic, separating the father from the child. Now, fathers are at the beginning stages of starting to get some leverage with some more partial custodies and some full custodies, believe it or not. The mistakes that I made, again, being very hard line about the court systems who run it and these things. Again, someone say, "Oh, that's not smart. If you don't get a lawyer, if you don't go through all the necessary channels." Well, you can go through those channels and still wind up on the opposite end, and that people don't think about.
And broke, right? Because now you've spent money on a lawyer.
Yeah, you could go to court, you could do the paperwork, you could do everything you can, and it's still not pan out. So for me, so there's an article that I'll be posting, and that was written by Face to Face Africa, and I speak directly in the article that after 18 years, I just threw in the towel of being in and out of court just for custody and trying to see your kids and love your kids and take care of them, and and there's a part in the film, and I'll let I won't they say spoiler, but I won't make the spoiler, but there's a specific part where I speak about it, and then it transitions into the women, and then the women speak their narrative. I open up with a dialogue, a diatribe dialogue, however we want to say that, and first 5 minutes, I believe, and then I make a specific point around the courts and the systems and stuff like that. So so definitely go out and I don't say go out because I'm not having a screening, and it's not in theaters all around America, right? But purchase the link, just it's on Vimeo, $35.99. Just click on, purchase it, look at it, and you can post online how you think about it, how you feel about it. For me, I understand that it's. I just want to put a bit of understanding for both men and women around this topic. I am not pessimistic. I just understand the realities of court systems and emotions and people's emotions
as it exists today, right?
Yeah. So so I kind of, this is not going anywhere anytime soon.
Unless the system goes somewhere.
Exactly. Right? It's just like the school to prison pipeline, there's money to be made.
There you go, which is connected to this topic.
Yeah. So all interconnected. So I think, when people hear the title, they get triggered. I had a back and forth with an elder sister about it, So she heard this, soon as she saw the title or heard the title, she just went into this total, not just defense, but again, this vitriol towards the men, which is normal because you have men that are, maybe beating women up or just. I'm
glad you're going to that. Right? Yes.
So you have that, but it's almost like I look at it almost as it being synonymous with white supremacy, where we, the black man, or Black people are who they are in regards to other ethnic groups, or if we want to say white people, in their imagination. So whoever we are in their imagination is what we're going to be. And so this narrative around deadbeat or violent dads, it's almost something that people want to hold on to. As I'm having these conversations and discussions around it, that, you know, I'd rather that be the reality than not be. It seems. Now, I'm not saying our women want that or people want that, but when you talk about it, there's all this refocus that there's very intelligent, bright sister who this was the first thing when I talked about this, the first thing she talked about was, you know, the men who are abusive towards women. I'm like, this isn't what I'm talking about. This isn't that topic. Now that's, and attorney Janelle Colbert. And I got to speak on them. And that's, you know, I'll be remiss. That was the first thing I should have did.
Okay.
As soon as I came on, was speak about the women in the film.
Talk about that.
My apologies. Again, you know, for people who know me.
It goes, I usually say the ancestors, our originator, takes the conversation where it needs to go. So the fact that you're remembering them now is very much not a coincidence. So speak on them.
Yeah. I should open up with them. No, so but
so what I'm doing, because this happens a lot in our community, when I was as I continue to build community, and this comes from the post-traumatic slave syndrome, and Dr. Joy DeGroy has talked about it. We've become a very apologetic community, even when we don't need to apologize. And that feeling of needing to say sorry is also another thing that induces trauma, and we don't even realize it. And it has a negative effect on us. So you're mentioning them, so let's mention them. Don't take on the guilt of not mentioning them before, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely, I appreciate that. Yeah, the attorney Janelle Colbert, and she's like I would say the centerpiece of the film. She's a father's advocate attorney who has been doing great work as an article. Even when I was researching some people to be in the documentary, she was one of the first names I came across. And I think there was a Black Enterprise article about her practice as a father's advocate attorney. And then she talks about, reiterates that we're not talking about violent men or fathers. That's another story for another time. That's another documentary. That's another piece. We're talking about fathers who want to be in their children's lives and struggle to see them or have their kids, bottom line. And so also attorney Stephanie Burgess out of Savannah, Georgia. So attorney Colbert is out of Maryland, I believe Bethesda, Maryland, Colbert Law Center. And then attorney Stephanie Burgess, who has Burgess Law Group. And they...
If you want to even recognize them further, you can send me that information and I'll add it to the description of the recording once we have it up.
Yeah, the articles and stuff like that. Like they are great. They give a great narrative and discussion and diatribe on the topics. And so I'm going to be, you know, starting like a Patreon. I opened a link. So I have to do that because I have so many interviews, not even just for this topic, but from other documentaries and other things that I'm working on that I know people that, you know, won't make the cut of the film that people want to hear. So I have to do that. And it's tough because teaching and working full time and then trying to make films and all this other stuff. And I
was wondering how you do it, but yes, you get it.
Yeah. Because this film I've done from the ground up. It's just 100% me, the editing, all of that stuff. But the women obviously make the film. And there's so much gems and jewels that I didn't get to put in the film. There's 8 women, and I think I interviewed close to 20 who all had, you know, good information, but I needed it to flow a certain way. you know, I was even thinking about taking the women who weren't in it and making another project just like this one and as a continuation and highlighting the points that they made. So you had a question, because I was going to speak on some of the other women, but
no, I was going to say this reaction from the women that you spoke to is part of the problem, the disease that we have in our community, but in general in the globe, where, like I was saying to you before we came into recording, we have a low IQ syndrome, and it's not necessarily low IQ that is natural, it's intention. We ourselves have allowed ourselves to have low IQ, and what I mean by that is we don't have any critical analysis skills. When I saw the topic, when you sent it to me, and I think I had seen it before I went into my inbox, I had seen it because I do follow you on Instagram. I had seen it come up as a new post. And that thought, because I am someone who's in this society that has conditioned us to think that, right? This is the power of propaganda. So that thought came to mind, but I paused. You have to pause and critically analyze. And I said to myself, there's no way this brother is doing this. There has to be more to it. And therefore I clicked to find out what there was that was more to it. And when you click and you find the trailer, you will find him and the women explaining they're not talking about those other fathers. So this is a message to all of you and those women. And yes, it's going to be women, and you know yourselves, all of you. You know yourselves, it's going to be you. Those women and those protective men who are going to come on to say, but, what about this deadbeat, but. Watch the trailer and then come back and talk about it. But this is definitely a topic that must be talked about. And again, we also have to be a society, on top of critically analyzing everything that we look at, we have to be a society that accommodates that two things can be true at the same time. That there can be fathers who do not have the right to have their children, and there can be fathers who actually have the right. But go on, talk about the other women, Nware.
Well, you're absolutely right in what you're saying. And it's one or the other. Again, when you're dealing with a linear society.
Very Western, you have to pick a lane.
Western linear society. And for those who are aware and know what that is and what that means. You know, as opposed to, you know, a circular.
For us Africans, everything.
Understanding of who and what we are. But again, it's a narrative. It's almost a narrative that wants to be played out. And I think we understand the leadership of men and or lack thereof, or what that looks like and how it should look, and these frameworks of what that is. Missing how other factors can come into play, because if we want to have that same narrative about who and what the men and it's your fault and how and why and these things, it applies the same with white supremacy and why the African isn't in power. Yeah. It's as simple as that. Yeah. So there are things that we want to say we need to do or want to do or shouldn't do in these things, but you cannot leave out this other dynamic that is an extreme as it applies to the court system's white supremacy, as well as women who want to use that, who they don't have to necessarily understand all the dynamics of it, but they know that there's leverage in it. So much so that a few of the women speak on the false allegations element, using the leverage of these crazy men who are beating up women doing crazy stuff. And now when you have that minority group, very small group of men who do that, but men do that, as opposed to the men that don't, we can now hang that over, especially in a racist court system. You know,
I'm gonna share something at the risk of the court not being on my side the next time I go to them. But I too am divorced, and I went through this process of the whole, because part of divorce is who's gonna have the children, right? And it's not a part you can choose. They make it a part of, like, this is by law. They come to you and they're like, okay, tell us what's gonna happen with the children. And I intentionally made it so that my ex was not as involved by the court, that he did not end up at the mercy of the courts, because I knew his well-being was important as far as the children. If he was stressing, the children were going to be stressing, right? So I didn't even go for child support for that reason, because I didn't need it. I had a well-paying job. I could afford the food. I could afford the children's clothing, and I could afford rent. Why am I doing child support? Like, you know? So anyway, and that was very intentional. But during the divorce, at one of the meetings where he wasn't present, the court employees were encouraging me to push for child support as I was saying no. So even the court system, for those of us who are trying not to do it, they push you to do this.
Oh, big time. Yes. That's how I got caught. I was late. I had never been, I'm always on to court on time, and I was traveling from very long. And at one time where there's some struggles in the travel, I got there 45 minutes late, they took full advantage of me not being there. So so it's purposely done. And a sister that reminds me a bit of you, at the very end of the documentary, as the credits are going up, I have a couple of sisters that I would have loved to have had in the documentary. But it's like during the credits, and they speak for about a minute or two. And one of them specifically talks about the same reasons why they didn't go to court. They had a decent job. They didn't want the father in the system, none of that stuff, because they knew that it would be more of a dysfunction to bring them in. And so you have scenarios where people know that. They know that the courts are terrible, but just through that kind of vindictiveness of wanting it to be like that is why that will continue to happen. So it's not, the court is not going anywhere. So, and then I come from a community that was openly asking, hey, you know, we had the elders, why aren't you sitting down and doing that? And so again, you have the understanding of who and what the courts are, who and what white supremacy is, and utilizing it almost as, for some who aren't in violent relationships or these relationships with men, was just all this vitriol, this craziness, almost as a Karen, like a Black Karen kind of situation, if that makes sense. You know, using this as leverage and then creating narratives that didn't exist or don't exist. So it's now, as we've taken on certain types of foreign ideological perspectives, we now bring that in and use it as leverage, as if I'm the white woman. So that's something that I learned. I learned that I could, not that I would do this, but I could say, Nduku punched me in the eye and write something and go to court. And then now Nduku has to go to court. Now, this never happened. Never happened at all. But regardless, you have to go to court and get a lawyer and figure it all out. So that's what made me kind of understand really what the court system is all about. When, you know, someone blatantly, has all of these falsehoods and stuff, and you're like, oh, this is how this works. This is white supremacy at its finest. Doesn't necessarily mean because there's Black people involved that it's not working in that type of vein in regards to how institutional racism works in the subconscious and the conscious, not just politically and social.
Yeah, two things, and it's interesting as I'm sitting listening to you talking about this. I studied jurisprudence and paralegal studies in my undergraduate studies, and was going to go to law school, but I became a mother, and the law schools that would have accepted me based on my SAT, LSAT were out of state, so I couldn't do that and still be with my family. Choice that I made. But as you speak about this, it's taking me back to those moments in class where I used to get really aggravated because if you study law in the United States, you actually understand the criminality of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one time we had, and I'm going to get to my point in a second. One time we had, and it's amazing. It's great that your brain went to the place where it connected Karen to these Black women who are now using law to manipulate and to get their way. But we had a professor, a criminal law professor, who would tell these horrific stories about clients that he was defending, like really, really bad stories, really, really bad stories, like murderers. We're talking criminal offense, right? And I remember one time asking him, how do you sleep? Like, does this bother you? And he straight up said to me, no, it doesn't bother me. I'm doing my job. I'm going by the law. And using the law, I did what was right. So it's not about morality. American legal system or justice system, the injustice system, because there's nothing just about it, is not about morality. It's not about repair. It's about, its main purpose is to protect property, right? And property being owned by the white man. So the United States is property. The government is property. So to protect their position in that. So that's their main goal. But at the end of the day, another goal of theirs is to make as much money out of the people who are on this land as possible. So that system is about fees, is about you coming back, court fees, court fees, court fees, court fees all day. And the more you violate, the more you miss a court date, the more you miss by a few hours, the more fees you're paying. So it's like the DMV, right? With a registration card. I used to say they send it in a certain way so that you miss it, so that you have to pay the fees. It's all a setup. But I was going to say, to the parents of these women and to those who get along with their daughters, I'm going to say to you today, this Father's Day, especially if you're noticing that your grandchildren are missing their father, if you know the importance of having a father in a child's life, the best thing you can do this Father's Day, especially in place of going for brunch and spending a lot of money at some useless restaurant, the best thing you can do is spend that $35 and buy this film for your daughter so that she can wake up.
I appreciate that.
That's the best thing you can do as a parent of these women. Buy this film for your daughter so that, yeah, it clicks. Because maybe she's gonna, like Nware said, she's gonna listen to the women more than she's gonna listen to Nware. So get her to sit and watch this, and tell her it's the best thing she can do for her kids on Father's Day. But go on, Nware.
Yeah, because these women, they are phenomenal. You know, our sisters are phenomenal. I think we know, we understand that. And the courts, again, manipulate any of the emotions to create and make money and destroy the Black family. It's just simple. It's not even a difficult thing. So for us, as men, where it's, you know, we know the issues and the problems that we cause. You know, some men know, but we know the issues and the problems that we cause in regards to relationships, in regards to the children, in regards to, you know, deadbeat dads that do exist, all of these different elements. So, but when you have solid sisters who understand these dynamics, they don't even deal with this. I spoke about the two lawyers, the two social media sisters that are in here, Goddess Ayana and Love Dorsey. Like, Love Dorsey is one of the sharpest women that I've heard in regards to her dialogue and her context and how she understands things. She speaks directly in saying that how she has just a high school diploma. But when we talk, kind of, I believe, off camera, because I have so much footage of her from the interview, of her having a gift. And there are a lot of Black people who are Black-centered and not necessarily African-centered, so they may not know how much that African mother wisdom is inside of them and where it directly comes from. She may know, I don't know. She may understand that, but that's directly what that is, as griots and storytellers and stuff like that. And so she has something in her that has many people following. And you have different groups, you know, like intelligent, beautiful people. I'm like in a group that's around professors and scholars and all that kind of stuff. You have a lot of people who aren't, you know, about, you know, the whole college thing, universities and all that kind of stuff, but have sharp common sense and understanding more than what a professor would even know and understand in regards to the social dynamics of their people and being in tune directly on the pulse and understand that. And that's the epigenetic thing, you know what I mean? The epigenetics that.
I'm glad you're mentioning this, because this is something, and we'll do the last question and then we'll close in about 2 minutes. This is something that I am making it very intentional to speak to those who are joining our community, to let them know that in Bongi or Ubuntu, everyone is valuable. This thing of I got on on Clubhouse with a Black woman who was talking about I'm an Ubuntu, an African, who was talking about, let me teach you how to create value in yourself. It irritated me so much, because that every human being, as long as they step on this earth, they have value.
Exactly.
Every single human being. Exactly. Taking a breath is value. Like this whole notion of Western, of capitalism, of creating value in human beings is something that drives and fires the flames of exploitation. And we as Black people need to stop.
Those of us, the religion thing plays a role too. It's fundamental. And
don't even get me started on religion. You don't want to go there, because we have to finish in 3 minutes. We've done shows on religion, because I'm now returning to African spirituality because of this. That's a topic that we need to talk about at another time. But even as I had you speaking about, and I'm forgetting her name, the sister you just described, I could hear the emotion in your voice. So while you were filming, what interview triggered you the most? What interview? I made a mistake there. I was trying very much to be intentional about not using the word trigger. What interview took you back to your own experience and had you pausing?
Well, I would say probably Attorney Colbert, because I would almost say all of them, because Wendy Saravino from Kean University, who I work with, she's Dominican. She's the one who speaks Spanish.
Is she the one who says, stop, tell her, you know what, now that you know her, I said to her, thank you, sister, but go on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she's great. Isabella Livingston has a great story. She runs a Closet Savage. She has this store that she runs. Of course, Goddess Ayana, who's been around on social media for years, and she's been on point with her dialogue. Cheryl Phoenix from the UK of the Black Child Agenda.
The accent,
gives her narrative. Of course, Teresa the Songbird, who's a great poet, and I'm trying to make sure I'm not leaving anyone out. But those, there's like 8 sisters give great points. Oh, Dr. Evandra Catherine. Oof. Dr. Catherine is, she's from Arizona State University. And she's child therapist. I can't remember what her big title is, but she is so sharp and on point. Beautiful. She's like, you know, I don't even tell her age, but she looks like she's like 15. You know, beautiful, intelligent sister.
But
yes,
despite her title, and you said, I don't remember how big her title, like, because it's huge.
Yeah.
The thing that I'm trying also to drive us towards is not looking at those as important things, those PhD, this. Because the biggest thing from what you're describing her, the biggest thing she could be doing for her community is the relationships she's building with these children that she's speaking with.
Yeah, exactly. And I will speak off record. I'll tell you my views on
We will.
systems and stuff like that, and how I view them. But these sisters are great. Like I said, I should have opened up when we got into, we get to talking politics.
I'm trying to get you to get away from the guilt. You have given them their flowers. And
they are. Yeah, they're all great. And again, all of their, and this is the point I was trying to get to, all of their stories made me think about certain things, because I'm like, and it's almost like this is the best narrative or the best analogy that I have for this. Like white people who say, oh, there's no such thing as racism, whatever. But when you do the census on, would you, because people have done all kind of sociological census, would you want to be black? And all of them say no, right? And like
the fact that they're putting out TikTok videos of dancing Afrobeat dances, right? Like
yeah. So like, knowing that, you would want to be black because you know all the issues and things that go on. So people know what's going on. And so I'm saying this to say, when you give somebody the title, you're going to have some women that are triggered and whatever, but the majority of men and women and people, when I say the title, they go right into a story about somebody they know that's going through this. And so people know that this is happening. They, may not want to acknowledge it or speak on it or try to give it another, just keep it, blame the men. That's what we normally do. In this specific scenario, whatever we're talking about is the men's fault. And I was very that person. I was that kind of man where it was always the man's fault.
So did you carry the guilt of feeling like it was your fault the whole time? No,
not specific. I'm saying in regards to anything that goes left with the family or the culture,
before it happened to
community, any of those things. It's directly the man. And then going through what I went through, and then listen to a lot of women speak about who knows women better than women, right? And having them speak about all of these things woke me up to like, I'm very clear on issues that can be caused by women that can take things extremely left. And when I had this very stern, it's the man's fault if anything goes left or this or whatever. And that's it. Not understanding both play a major role. And then when you get into the court systems, that's a whole different dynamic when you're dealing with family dynamics, that the women will know that they have some type of leverage specifically against a black man in a racist court system. So that's pretty much, the deal with this. There's a lot I left on the table with a lot of things. But like I said, these sisters are sharp and off the chain. And again, I just gave them the topic and they already knew. Like it wasn't nothing that they had to look up or read. They just talked.
Life experience, which is the best teacher you can have, experience.
Yeah. You have to look up any primaries from Pew Research or the Bureau of Labor and Statistics and the CDC and all this stuff. They just now of course certain data and numbers want to rattle some things off. You can do that, but they just gave great dialogue on it, and it was easy. It was easy. I didn't kind of spin it anyway. None of this stuff. It was just, here's the topic. I think I might have had one or two questions, because when you're doing a documentary, and when you edit, you always have to have a question so you can edit it, whatever. So I think I asked a few, but it wasn't even like all I needed was the title, and they were going.
And as we talk about, thank you so much first of all for listening to your to the wind that whispered to you. I'm using that reference because Mama Kanyisile, who has written a book that we are helping her publish, does a poem in the book where she talks about the wind rustling and telling her to awaken to tell the story of the African warrior woman. So, and the wind rustling is the ancestors talking to you, right?
Exactly.
So the spirits coming to you, and I'm glad you listened to them and decided to do it this way, because you're right. I'm a woman, and I'll tell you, it's powerful to have the women telling the story. And it may have had an effect of me looking at it as mansplaining if it was men doing it. So that was a good choice, yeah.
And I know we got to get ready to go, but the title, like any titles, that's why I didn't talk about the titles. So normally I would have a list of points when I would do these interviews. Like I said, I have done an interview in quite some time. But titles have to be like, I have like 3 or 4 titles. My first film, DNA, right? Now there's a subtitle to it, using genealogy to change my slave last name, but it goes by DNA, right? This other film I'm working on called Black Beaches, right? Beach property, Black Beaches. Another film called Our God is Black. You know, it's got to be 2 words, 3 words, nothing too long. This one couldn't be for mothers. It couldn't end there. Like this had to be like the title for color girls when something isn't enough. I can't think of the title for color girls, but this needed that title for mothers who won't let fathers see their children, like right to the point. And I take a lot of cues from when Spike Lee talks about a lot of different things and how you should go about film. He says you should do exactly what you want to do and how you want to frame it. So the title needed to be direct and to the point. And then there's going to be follow-ups that I know eventually I'm going to let out the back because I'm going to be doing more interviews.
Yeah.
So
maybe that's your way. That's your way to start your Patreon membership. You can say they'll be available there first before they're available publicly. So there you go. If you wanna see those firsthand before they go public, join his Patreon membership. There you go.
Yeah. So yeah. So gotta keep that rolling. The Patreon and the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you do have a YouTube channel. We're going to talk about that in a minute. I was going to quickly say, as you were talking just before this last comment you made, it made me put myself in the shoes of our Black men, to have empathy, right? Which is what that is. To put yourself in someone's shoes, to actually imagine yourself as them and imagine how you would feel under the experience that they're going through. That really is what empathy is. And I thought to myself, our men are having to deal with white women on one hand, the Karens, and Black women on the other hand. Like when we talk about the healing and the trauma that is in our community, that's a lot of times we continue to allow to continue in this particular issue that you're talking about. We are the ones allowing to continue because I chose, and many other women chose, not to use the court system to go against the fathers of their children. So we can, as a community, we can say today, all right, I'm going to use elders. I'm not going to use the court system. And I'm going to make sure that the elders at least have me taken care of, if I need to be taken care of financially, but to make sure that we don't introduce this exploitative system in our families to destroy us. So our men are dealing today with a white woman, as in they have to tread lightly when they deal with a white woman. And now they have to tread lightly when they deal with a Black woman. So we as Black women need to stop that. And like our sister, who's a colleague at Kean, said, stop. Stop. Yeah. So talk about where they can find this movie, the film, where they can find it, where they can follow you. Let's talk about it. Yes, please share.
All right. So there was a long time where I didn't have any social media. Like I wanted nothing to do with it. So when people scroll down and they find out when I just hopped on, and I did it because of my first documentary, I had to get a Facebook and an Instagram. So first off, the film is on Vimeo, and there is a link, but you can go on Vimeo. I normally can read out. They can
follow you, Nware. You're on there. If they follow you on Vimeo, they have access to all your films. That's how I saw it. So
okay, great.
Yes. Okay, so you just give them your profile on, for those who will be listening on audio, your profile on Vimeo.
Yeah, I was going to read that. I'm also, for Instagram, it's at Nware Films, NWARE FILMS, at Nware Films. My other Instagram is at DNA Name Change. So exactly how it sounds. It's spelled, no dots and no underscores, DNA NAME. CHANGE. So at DNA Name Change. On Facebook, at Nware Burge, no underscores, none of that. Same with, I believe, TikTok, Twitter. One is at Films Nware, the other is at Nware Films. Sometimes I confuse between TikTok and Twitter. I'm not on that too much. But, and with Vimeo, again, Film Freeway is where you can also find me. One thing I need to point out, I have the trailer on Film Freeway, a link. I'm having whatever issues with the trailer on the Vimeo link. Yeah. So you can click onto the film, purchase the film, and watch the film. And the trailer actually opens up the film. But the actual trailer that sits, for whatever reason, is not working, and I'm working on getting that fixed. So
yeah, but for now, if you go there, which happened to me last night as I was preparing, just click on the, once it opens up and you can't hear, you see it, it's not doing, click on the Vimeo box right below it, and then it will open up on Vimeo and you'll be able to watch it.
Yeah, because I think the trailer is supposed to automatically open up. So I want that fixed like now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I don't, it's like, and then you can't call anybody. Like, it's like this robot thing,
This is what our lives have become, AI dependent.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, man. So, and then they send you an email, and then you can't necessarily, respond to that. So
yeah,
I'm gonna figure something out, because I just want the trailer to be available, man. Like, the film's more important. I wanted people to see the film, but like, I know me coming from an urban hood environment in Newark, like my first instinct is like, man, how come the trailer's not working? I hope this guy ain't trying to get me. Like, that's the first.
You know what? Just because you said that, I'm gonna play it to end our session right now.
All right.
How about that? So let me get it where I saved it. Let me just get it where I saved it.
All right.
But you can any last word as I get it.
Yeah. So just watch the film. It's a beautiful film. It's all women's narrative on the importance of fathers in the lives of family and children, titled "The Mothers Who Won't Let Fathers See Their Children." So before you speculate and take offense, watch the trailer, watch the film.
Exactly. All right. So let me see which one is going to work. Okay. So I found the one that's going to work. And we can watch the whole one. I had it play at the beginning, but we're going to watch let me see whether I can share my screen.
Yeah.
And we'll be able to watch it.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. So let me play it. Let me know if you can't hear it.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Anytime the system is set up that restricts or limits the ability of a group of people, in our case, Black fathers, to be limited or to be restricted in how they parent their children, that really is a civil rights issue.
Outside of the stuff that we know is abuse to children, things that are just not okay. Sexual abuse, physical abuse, directly putting the kids in harm's way. But outside of those things, you got to ask yourself, what real reasons do I have to keep this child away from their father?
But regardless of that, if the father is willing, and we know that most Black fathers want to be in their children's lives, if we know that the Black father is willing to be in a child's life, we shouldn't use court systems to separate us. We shouldn't use our children as tools to fight the father or become a weapon against the father.
Pero no te das cuenta del daño que estás haciendo. Así que detente, para, ya basta. No sigas, no prosiga, porque es importante la vida emocional de tu hijo.
What's alienation of affection? that means that they're purposely keeping the child out of the father's life for no good reason. We're not talking about anybody who is abusive or when there's some type of real reason to stay away from a father or have a father not be in a child's life. We're talking about that petty stuff. The petty stuff when a mother's mad because the father has a new girlfriend or something like that. And because he now has a new girlfriend, that father can no longer see his child. That's the stuff that needs to stop. That's the stuff that's not talked about.
Parental alienation really was once an abuse that mostly women were able to commit, right? Because we all had the ability to be able to emotionally control our men with the children. And historically, the courts have been on the woman's side.
There should be no reason why your child should not be having a relationship with their father. It's hard enough being young and black in the education system. I can speak about the UK. In the UK education system, with the schools to prison pipeline, with the targeting of black boys to have them kicked out, to push them into the prison system, to the over-sexualization of our girls, again, to push them into either the mental health, pregnancy, or the prison system.
We're destroying families, we're destroying legacies, we're destroying children's healthy development. We are causing our girls, because I can speak for myself, to turn to the streets for love, sex, money, drugs, all of it, because we don't have access to our fathers, the first man that can ever look us in our eyes with a non-sexual thought and say, I love you.
The truth will come for your child and lay itself in front of your child. And when your baby is 15 and 16 and coming back to you with questions about where their other parent is and why you kept them away, your emotional state will not be enough of a defense. It will not.
That's it. And, you know, ironically, the sister from London, that was all footage, my footage from when I traveled in London. But someone asked when they saw the trailer, they said, those kids, is that a real picture of a child in a handcuff? Yeah, plenty of, that's just one picture.
It took me back to Brian Stevenson. You know Brian Stevenson?
I'm not sure.
He does Just Mercy, the movie Just Mercy. He did.
Yeah, I know the film. Yeah, I know the film.
He did the book as well. That book.
Okay, yeah.
When you do have time to get another book, get Just Mercy. But I'll tell you, I got to. There's a chapter on a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
I haven't picked up the book since. I just broke down, and yes, they are doing this to our children. Yeah. They are. We'll speak to it if you want to speak to it quickly.
Yeah. I saw the film just, I forgot about that. About the lawyer, right? The attorney?
Yes, Brian Stevenson is the attorney, yes.
Yeah. So, again, that's, you know, I often tell my students, anything that you're watching about, you know, black cultural stuff like that, that could be bad, or we talk about slavery, any of that stuff, you're watching Disney. All of it is Disney. The reality of the things that we've gone through, not even just with the slave trade, but just here in the Americas, in current times now, is you know, it's like the reality is crazy. The things we have to go through. It's just Disney. Just me as a African American, you know, good kid. I played basketball. You know, I went to decent schools and stuff like that. Was never a gangbanger, drug dealer. None of that stuff that they deem whatever. Although I love those brothers like that. I know them all. I grew up around them. I grew up in tough neighborhoods, stuff like that. I've been shot at like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. I was in Philly one day driving late. I was like, sheesh, that was close. Yeah. So, you know, rob, shotguns, gun, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, if you black, that's part of this, you know, part of the story, you know,
in an urban Black neighborhood. So it's not even like you don't have to be, big, tough gang banging and all this stuff, hard rock and doing all this craziness and robbing people. Nah, you're just Black in an urban area, and somebody's gonna, if a police officer ain't gonna try to shoot you, it's sad to say, his brother might try to shoot.
Brother and sister, right?
So
yeah.
that's
which goes back to me saying that it's upon us to heal our community.
Yeah, definitely. So it's tough, man. It's Black people had it tough here. I think that's the only thing that I will speak on when we talk about, again, the versus battle, because I don't it's about us as Black people. Now I have points that I make and whatever in regards to certain things, but I don't really get into that. Yeah. One thing I will say that because in the versus battle, the whole world is against the Black woman, and all of this is absolutely true. Mm-hmm. The Black men are trying to kill.
Even more reason why we should stand together in support of each other.
Exactly. And you have sisters who are very clear on how when their son walk out the door, they know that it's again, Black women get a terrible bad rap. I don't know if someone's trying to shoot you all the time.
Not like
there's other things that they try to get at the Black woman that they do to get at the Black woman in global white supremacy. Like when you have this thing where that is a literal thing, it's like, and the reason I'm saying that now is because I had a conversation with somebody and I never would speak on these things in regards to men got to go through and all that. It just is what it is. That was always my mentality. And now you have this new, mental health and men's health and this kind of thing, which is great. I just think there's still realities that we're so far in. It's like racism. Racism ain't going nowhere. So we're having conversations and these things. So I don't think this understanding of men's well-being and health and the conversation that needs to be had about it for us. Because even I'll be honest, I don't even really be having it. It's kind of like I still have that kind of, I got to deal with it. Keep it pushing. And that's just how we wired. You know what I mean? It's like almost being wired for war almost. Like if something goes down, something blows up in front of you, you got to go through because you got to win the war. You can't sit there and whatever. You could go through that for a little bit, but you got to step over that because we got a war to win, not a battle. So
it reminds me of, the topic is not funny, but this satire a lot of times is used to point out the ridiculousness of our society. John Oliver did a series where he showed how white men and white supremacy has used their weapons, has represented their manhood. I mean, the actual manhood, the actual appendage that represents manhood. It's in the shape of the bullet, it's in the shape of the nuclear weapons and all that. So in one way or another, they are taking our lives using that tool. Yeah. So with the Black men, it's the bullet. With a Black woman, is they rape you and kill you in that way. They take you up.
Nearly Fuller and Dr. Frances Cress Welsing has talked about that in the ISIS papers. Cress Welsing talks about that. God bless her soul, who just transitioned. Or whatever. So, these things are, part of our culture and like as far as the negative parts of Western or American culture. It's just normalizing stuff. So definitely. But this is great, man. I appreciate you having me on. I gotta get ready to because I'm going to a family reunion.
Stay on quickly. I'll take 5 minutes of your time quickly and then I'll let you go. But yes, so we're going to wrap up. Thank you, everyone. Like I said, to the parents whose daughters are the women we are speaking of, go ahead and spend that, I'll say $40 to round it off. Go ahead and spend that money, get your daughter the film and get her to come to her senses. And do it for your grandchildren, if not for anyone else. If you're not doing it for the father because you didn't like them, do it for your grandchildren. But asanteni, kwaherini, and happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there doing their thing, and to also the fathers who are not seeing their children today. May you be with them in spirit. And because we are Africans and we believe in spiritual connection, connect with your children. Start, if you didn't do it this morning, sit this evening and do a meditation and connect with your children. You never know, your spiritual connection might touch them, and they might ask their mother to see you. So, all right, asanteni.